So let's shift gears and talk about your book and you wrote that as a way of healing your childhood.
Yeah, when I started the book, and I started it many years ago, about 8 years ago, I was mostly just trying to make sense of my childhood. And it wasn't until I went no contact with my parents, uh, about, I guess about 3 years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago, that I realized what the book was about. And then I rewrote it once I realized that my mother has what I believe to be an undiagnosed personality disorder.
Mhm.
So once I educated myself on personality disorders, that book that I had written all made sense.
Hmm.
Everything that had ever happened to me made sense under the structural understanding of the child or victim of narcissistic abuse. So that was a huge awakening for me. And when I went no contact, I just felt compelled to rewrite the story in to help people understand that might have had a similar childhood
Right.
as mine, what might actually be happening to them, what might be going on. So yeah, it started out as just a way for me to understand my life, and then ultimately then to share that story and hope that helps other people.
Right. So I was reading that about 1% of the population is diagnosed with narcissism. So, but just like so many different things, there's like 10 characteristics, right? And if you have seven, you're a narcissist, but if you have six, you're not, but you still have those characteristics. So how prevalent do you feel like it's in our society? Um, I mean, I wouldn't
Yeah,
want to pull out any examples from the news, but
yeah, exactly. Well, some people estimate that it's between 1% and 3%, but I actually think it's much, much higher than that.
hmm.
I'm more in the camp of Dr. Romani. I don't know if you're familiar with
No.
her, but she's known as the world's leading expert on narcissistic abuse, and she estimates somewhere between 15 and 19%.
Wow.
And that's because, one, most cases of narcissistic personality disorder are not diagnosed.
Hmm. Because those
And
people would never go get diagnosed.
well, no, yeah, it's literally part of the disorder is
Right.
that they cannot be self-aware or take accountability. So you can see how it's very difficult to diagnose this. Um, and two, when you're talking about, let's say, what I'm talking about, which is the abuse aspect of it, in terms of being a victim or a survivor, the cluster B personality disorders include borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, sociopathy, and psychopathy. So there are four of those, and they all have narcissism at their core.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not just talking about narcissistic personality disorder.
Hmm.
We're talking about all of the cluster Bs. And so if you take all of that, I absolutely think the number's more, around 15 to 19%, which means that millions of people are affected by these personality disorders, probably up to like 60 million in the United States alone.
Do you think that those people that have those qualities, it's not, are they born with it or they acquire it? Can they change? I'm guessing they would have to want to change. And is that one of the reasons you're not in contact with your mother now?
Yeah, this is an area of emerging research.
Hmm.
And there, about a handful of, experts in narcissistic abuse that are very public, and they don't even agree.
Hmm.
No one really knows the answer to this, but my opinion is that it's like schizophrenia, where it's nature and nurture. So you are probably born with a genetic predisposition for it,
Hmm.
and so you may have it right off the bat, or something in the environment could kind of trigger it at some point in your life. And but generally, you're going to be in that range of behavior. I think pretty early on, but it can get more pronounced in your 20s, let's say. So it has some similarities to schizophrenia like that. But I say probably more nature and then some nurture. And I think that when you're looking at borderline would probably be the most likely to be from nurture. And I think narcissistic personality disorder and psychopathy would probably be something you're born with. This is my opinion. It's not really known.
When did you realize that that's what was going on in your life?
And to answer your other question, yes, I believe once it's high enough on the spectrum, when it's a pathology, I don't think that it is treatable. I don't think it's curable, and that is why I went no contact with my mother, because I had the awakening or the understanding that this wasn't going to end, and it was so destructive to my life and my sister's life that I felt like it was the right thing for us to make, me, and she made this decision as well, to get out of it, to get out of the toxic family system. I discovered this when, a long time ago, my therapist, my wonderful therapist, had said, and I'm talking about 10 years ago, she had said, I think your mom has borderline personality disorder. And I looked it up and I read the 9 traits, that you're supposed to have, but she had all of them. And I was like, yep, she's got whatever that is, she's got it. And I didn't really think much more about it. That's how kind of just enmeshed I was with this family system. And it wasn't until there was a big blow up between me and my mom during COVID over Zoom that popped back in my head. I think I'm going to look up more about this borderline personality disorder. And I got this book called Understanding the Borderline Mother by Dr. Christine Ann Lawson. And this book is written in the 90s. So it's a little outdated, but it blew my mind open. It transformed my world. I thought I was reading about my own life. I had never even encountered anything, any literature or article that had summed up my life like this book, and particularly the subtype called The Witch. And that's where the title of the book comes from. Also, my mom is a witch. She practices witchcraft. And so it kind of has a double meaning. But that book really blew my mind open. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with something much, much bigger than I've ever quite understood here. But it's starting to make sense why there's so much mental illness and tragedy and dysfunction in my family. And I need to start protecting myself from this. And then probably 1.5 or 2 years later, another big blow up happened, and that's when I went no contact. So I gave it a good shot, even like for 1.5 years, knowing, using all of the tricks, the yellow rocking, the firewall, everything, and it wasn't working.
Right. So does she accept that, or does she still try to contact you?
She doesn't try to contact me.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give someone who like just avoid those kind of people? Probably the best. Avoid 20% of the population.
Yes. In fact, it is my advice. And most coaches, narcissistic recovery coaches, say the same thing. If you can, just get away from them.
Yeah, because they can't change, can they?
They can't change. And I have a lot of compassion for my mother. I mean, this is a terrible tragedy, in my life. I love her. And it's very, very deeply sad. I've, had to go through a lot of grief over all of this. But the simple truth is that people, when they have a very high, severe personality disorder, they're extremely destructive to the people around them. And the disorder is predicated upon your destruction. There's no way to get out of it. You can't be in relationship with one of these people without that occurring. And that's that. So yes, it's basically like if you don't have a child with this person, if you're not, taking care of an aging narcissistic parent, or, have some kind of business together that you can't get out of right at the moment. Sure, there are all kinds of tactics and ways that we can mitigate the situation.
Right.
But the overall advice is just to get out of it.